Welcome to Daily Success. Listen in on these personal conversations with today's leaders, innovators, and influencers as they discuss daily success principles, systems, and solutions. Get ready for Daily Success. Now, here's your host.
Hi, everyone. This is Tammy Patzer, and I'm really excited to introduce today's guest, Marian McSpadden. Marian, along with her husband, owns a multi-million-dollar business. She was born in the secluded culture of a horse-drawn buggy religious organization. When she was 34 years old, a strong force within her took her beyond the world as she knew it. Immediately, she was attracted to education. She took a GED and later graduated with a bachelor's degree. She sees no skin color and has a strong ability to bridge cultural gaps and speaks to corporate, women's, and other groups. You want her to speak to your group because she is so inspiring by her directness and authentic stories. Marian believes everyone deserves the chance to live a joyful, free, and fulfilled life. Through private coaching, Marian teaches with a real roadmap how she got free one time by literally fleeing in the dark, and how the second time she got free by staying and working it out. The process to hope and healing is faster and more fun with one who is committed to you, and that is Marian. So welcome, Marian.
Thank you, Tammy.
This is pretty exciting because I'll just have full disclosure, everyone. I actually met Marian and we were roommates. So I got to know a little teeny bit about her, but I'll let her tell you her story. She has a unique background and she literally escaped in the dark of night. So let's start your story, Marian, with that and why in the world did you want to escape?
Well, Tammy, I appreciate this opportunity to share with your listeners, and hopefully they can see themselves in part of this story where, sometimes you go along in life and you don't even realize that life isn't working because you're just living life as you know it. And that's how it was for me. It was just living life as I knew it. I didn't look at it as a bad life. I didn't look at it necessarily as a good life. I was just living life. Several things happened when I was 28 years old. I took on the role of becoming a mentor to mentor women to birth their babies at home. In the culture that I grew up, that was kind of common for people to do that. And at that time, they were needing someone. So I took some education and got some practice working with other midwives in neighboring communities and got to see the delightful, babies growing in the womb and then being delivered in their homes, and some of them in a water tank. In their homes. And I saw so many courageous women just doing a beautiful job of bringing those babies into the world. And that was an awesome experience, but it was a hard responsibility. And I didn't realize how broken my heart was till the weight and the responsibility of other people's lives were resting on my decisions, and they were looking to me. They took responsibility that, birthing was their choice to have a baby, and it was their choice where they birthed the baby, and they were where they wanted to be. For some people, when they go into labor and they're ready to have that baby that they're looking forward to, some people feel at home when they go through those hospital doors and they feel safe. Other women, if they go through those hospital doors, it's like, I'm in trouble. This is bad. I don't want to be here. They want to be home. And those were the women that I worked with, the women that said, I want to be home. This is my happy spot. So with that came responsibility. And from 28 to 34, I had been primary caregiver for 75 babies. And I think part of that weight with my broken heart to begin with began to weigh me down so heavily, like I felt I would physically die if something didn't change. And it wasn't like I was like really hemmed in, but emotionally I was becoming overcome. And I didn't know how I was going to survive. And I think there's a lot of listeners that have also experienced seasons in their life, and maybe this is their season now, that they're in that oppressed place where they don't know how to live life just the way they know it. It may not even be like a bad life, or it could be. It could be that they are in circumstances where, there's threats on their life of whatever could be going on with an abusive relationship or somebody severely controlling. I was controlled, but mostly it was in my head by the way I was raised. I was indoctrinated. This is how you do life. You don't have any other choices. This is your life. And if you do something else, that would not be good for you. So getting to the place where I felt like I couldn't go anymore started a little bit of a search on the inside, not very much. And it was like when I started doing that, and it didn't look very pretty. For me, it came through crying. When I was young, I seldom cried because tears didn't have a lot of value in our home. It was a little more like, okay, we've heard it now. If we cried about getting hurt or something. And then there's a particular moment when I was in second grade that I hit my head on the corner of the chimney when we were playing outside. It was a concrete chimney. And it hit the corner and it was like, hurt really bad. And I cried. I was in second grade and my teacher called me a crybaby. And I said, I'm never going to cry again because tears have no value. And from that moment on, no matter what happened, I just crammed everything down, shoved all of my emotions, all my feelings down into some container on the inside that was never meant to carry all that. And so all the heartbreak, the hurts that started at a young age, just, I think, reached a climax by the time I was 34 years old. And with the responsibilities, I got to a place where it was so heavy, I just cried. I walked the country roads by myself and I'd cry so intensely. It would like literally, it was all I could do was just to handle that one moment. But through that, there was like this cry for help that started being answered. And it came through people. Different people at different times started coming and intersecting my life. And they didn't make a big shift in my life, but they influenced me. And it was almost like they threw this rock or this, this little stepping stone to cross the river. Like they started throwing out rocks where I could start walking out in the water to make that cross over to the other side. And I didn't know even I was going to do that yet. But through that search, there was this movement starting to happen. And I think all of us can do that too, no matter where we're at in life, whether we're successful or not successful. If we have that desire to learn more of something, we can start seeking. And when that seeking happens, it's amazing what happens when that new information comes in. We start becoming transformed in that area. So maybe it's in our business we want to get better at something, and we can transform an area in our business just by starting that seeking pattern and then taking in the information and responding on it. And that's really all that I did, was I responded to the information that came. And in this secluded culture community, very confining as far as what you can do, I started being like led out of that, like I was going to go somewhere else, like I was going to cross that river that was the forbidden river to cross. And but it was pretty intense because remember, I was heartbroken already, and the depression was so intense that just living life was a struggle. And then to go through these changes, it was more, I couldn't even begin to, I couldn't even see like beyond 1 minute at a time. It was like such a short vision because I didn't know that I was going to be leaving. And then when it felt like I was going to be leaving, I was terrified because I was always taught that if I crossed that river, I'd go to hell. And that was part of the culture that I was raised in, was like, you need to stay in this culture, in this religious setting. And if you do something else, that is pretty slippery slope to hell. So through that desperation of not wanting to go to hell, it just doesn't sound good to me to burn in the fire, is what I was taught. So in those, like I was being led out in this river through my own seeking and my own information that was coming to me through seeking. So it's kind of like my own journey, but I was influenced by people who just gave me knowledge and things that helped me take those steps till I'm in the middle of the stream and I'm going under, because this is, I can't make the break, but I can't go back anymore, and I'm going under. And it was in that very intense moment that I really just made a decision to trust God. And I thought if I put myself in his arms, that I'm so close to him that I would be like literally next to his chest in his arms. He's not going to hell. I won't be going to hell. And it became my refuge. It became my safety. And I'd always thought of God as being this far away, angry God that you have no access to. If you don't do good enough here, you're going to go to hell. And, that's it. No other option. And instead, I discovered that he was a God who came near and he helped me in this life. And it wasn't just about waiting till I die to either go to heaven or go to hell. So in that moment of feeling like I'm going under and this is over for me, that's when I made that connection. And it was still like I was in the middle of the crisis of the river and I didn't get instantly helicoptered out of there. I had to walk through that. But it was now all of a sudden I had a safety zone to go to. And that is how I continued my journey, being guided by people who were still just kind of intersecting my life, knowledge and information that I was learning. But now I knew that something precious had happened to me and that I was going to need to have a voice. It needed to have a voice. I felt like a treasure had come to me and it needed to have a voice. But I knew it couldn't have a voice in the secluded place that I was. So part of that compelled me forward too and gave me a vision to go forward. And, so that was where, in that crisis of knowing that I need to make that break, which brings us to where you asked me to talk about, that's where I literally left in the dark because I didn't want to hurt my mom. I had two nieces that I was very close to, and they were 5 and 6 years old. I was around them almost every day of their life, and we had such a bond and connection. And I didn't know would I ever see them again or what that would look like. But I had to do it because I knew that I was being sent to go somewhere. And Tammy, it is so interesting to me. You and I met at the New Media Summit, but it's so interesting to me how now my voice is being sent through podcasting, through speaking, through helping other people who want to cross that river. And I now have a private coaching where I help them make that journey. But in that dark moment when the turbulent waters, I mean, the stream was so strong in the middle of that breaking out, I never dreamed when you're in the crisis of your life or in a place where it feels like it's not working and how could I ever get out of it? I just want to look back now and encourage anybody who may be there. You don't have to stay there. No matter how limiting something may look. Maybe we're challenged in not being able to learn as quickly as somebody else, or, whatever the limiting factor may be. Maybe we're in a relationship with somebody who doesn't give us the freedom that we're looking for, or, we have a goal for something. Or, some people have a special needs child that needs the extra care or something. And there are many factors. Sometimes it's health, or, our job can be very limiting sometimes because you have to show up at your job. So I just want to encourage people that even though it is hard to make a break in something, it's a process. And if you start seeking and you start reading books, the first thing that I did when I discovered that at the age of 33, I discovered in verbal communication, I was just visiting with another adult woman, when I was 33, and said, I've never told an adult this story. And when I did, she says, oh, I was raped when I was 5 too. And, that was the first time I ever realized that was a language that belonged to that event in my life. And that happened simultaneously surfacing while I was in that turbulence of that breaking out. So what I did was I immediately went to the library and got every book on rape and incest I could find, and I started reading it, started studying. I'm like, aha, now I know why, this was going on in my life. Now I understand, I wasn't just crazy. This is the result of something that should have never happened. And so I know that there is so much power in studying perhaps on that brokenness or the limiting situation in our life, but at the same time, having that focus to getting beyond that limiting factor. And everybody's journey looks different. Probably there's nobody else that is listening to my voice that is in the exact same situation, but the limiting things were not like I was held captive, except by my mind. My mind was the limiting factor in my life. And for me, it did mean that I had to really relocate so that I could continue to grow and learn and become this person that can now have the confidence to share with other people and to bring hope and prosperity, hopefully, into their lives, because I make a whole lot more money now than I did before I made these changes. So,
what a journey. If I've been listening, and of course you talked about, being in a very strict religious upbringing. You only had an 8th grade education, which is not even a high school graduate when you left. And of course you talk about having that feeling or having the guidance, let's just say God or universe, whatever we want to call it, that you did have some guidance coming to you and that people came into your life, and then you started to educate yourself and you actually learned about these, about what it was and why you were feeling the way that you're feeling. So now today you actually work with people to help them make these major breakthroughs. And have you created a process, or do you have a roadmap? How do you work with people?
Well, the first thing we need is the ingredients that somebody is ready for the change. And if they are ready, and this is what they know that they want to do, they decide they want to do something different, then the process will kind of unfold in the way that it works for them. We'll find what it is that is the limiting factors. And one of the things that happens early on is, if people aren't very clear, you have to start opening up, and because it's all within us. Nobody can help somebody else except that person can help themselves. We can come alongside, and that's what people did in my life. They came alongside my life, but it was ultimately up to me how I responded and what I did. But getting down to where we can start connecting to some that inner guidance that it can come in different stages. It doesn't always come the same for everybody. Some people get a dream or something, and all of a sudden they know something that's just like, this is the goal, and they know what they need to accomplish. They just need to know how to accomplish that. So I think for the people that I work with, we identify where it is, what is that one thing that they want to accomplish. And then we work towards that one thing. And then I would also like to say, I think there's a place that I really help people to, is when they get on the other side of that crossing, whatever that is for them. How do you not fall back again? Because sometimes the other side's a little sticky and muddy, and there may be some swamp ground, when you cross that river. And I think I could be a really strong support for people to continue to find a higher level in that new territory, because we become very vulnerable to old thinking patterns and old ways of responding when we're headed to new territory, maybe in a relationship. The other thing that I realized too for myself, and probably a lot of listeners, we've probably been in a room full of people and felt lonesome. And then we go home, and when we get to the house, we're still lonesome. We go to bed lonesome. We get up lonesome. And there is something that is missing in our life. There's a disconnect. And I also like to think about helping people bridge that gap where that disconnect isn't there, and they can connect with people in a group setting, and then they can connect. They're connected, so when they come home, either they can connect with a family that's there, or if they're single and they're living by themselves, that there's a fullness there and not that constant gnawing emptiness. And that would certainly be something that was a huge transition in my life. Of you can be in a community with lots of people and lots of family and still be alone.
I can really understand that, because there are so many people in the world who they don't understand that they keep looking to the outside to make them fill up, but it starts within you to fill up from the inside, and to have that spiritual connection or whatever. Again, that connection that you have, that where you're developing your own self-worth and everything. So I have a question. So you mentioned how you had to leave behind your mother and your little nieces. Did you have to sever those ties forever, or were you ever able to reconnect with any of the people you had to leave behind?
Well, that was a process as well. because they couldn't see me. Now, the children were innocent. They loved me regardless. But then the parents became protective and didn't want them to love me anymore. And they did their best to destroy that love because it was a threat to them, because these girls would have followed me anywhere. They just loved me. And so that became a very, very difficult thing for me to continue to walk out. And now these girls are grown in their early 20s, and they're doing well in life. But they've been taught that I'm kind of bad on the outside. I'm on the other side of the river. And I made that journey that should have never been made. And so we do have a phone connection and we get to see each other occasionally. But it's been hard. At best, it's been hard. There's been times when we've been able to be together. But it's almost like it opened up wounds. It's like you loved and you missed and it hurt so much. Sometimes it's hard to know how to be around those relationships and have such a limiting access. Now that they're grown and they're able to make their own decisions, they're taking on what they've been taught. And till they're ready to cross that river, at least in saying their minds become freed where they can either stay in the culture and still be free enough to love again and not feel threatened by it, or they want to cross the river themselves. And with my mom, she was very angry. It hurt. And they say hurt and anger is, they're kind of side by side. You hurt and then you become angry. And she had to fight that a lot. And she passed away a little over 2 years ago. And I was able to be with her and help care for her at the end. And it seemed like before she passed, she made peace with where I was. Maybe she didn't understand why I was on the other side of the river, but she understood she couldn't control me on the other side of the river, and she turned that loose. So in essence, she kind of set me free to be on the other side of the river and not judge me for it. But that was kind of like in her last half year of her life. And it was very special for me that the relationship was restored enough that we were able to do that. And that meant that I did a lot of things by reaching out and going above and beyond over and over and over, even when it hurt, even when it didn't always seem like it was that great. Of like, why do it? Because it doesn't seem like it's that right. But I believe that it is right to honor your parents, and I wanted to do that. So I did my best to honor my parents, but I couldn't be who they wanted me to be. And when she passed, it was I was with her when she passed, and it kind of felt like while she was passing, my heart was breaking, but it was also being healed at the same time. So it hurt, but at the same time, it felt like there was a healing in the hurt. And I grieved my mother's death immensely too, because all those feelings and emotions had gotten touched again. And so it really, I really grieved and I really hurt after my mom passed. But I felt like there was a healing side to it that was being healed for all the years of the separation. I don't know if that makes any sense or not. It's kind of hard to describe it. But I think I would encourage people in family settings, especially your parents, your children, do what you can to show them love and honor them in the right role. If you're the child, honor your parents. Doesn't mean you have to be controlled by them, but honor them. And if you're the child, and if it's your child, parents love their children, but you don't control them. So there's a way to love them. And do what you can to mend the bridges, or try to love them and not be part of the problem, but be part of the solution. And I used to think that, well, how can I be part of the problem? It seems there's problems everywhere in my life. And lately, I don't know when it happened, but somewhere in this growing journey, I say now I am part of the solution and not part of the problem, because if there is a problem, I will work with you to resolve the problem.
Well, it's interesting because as you speak, I can get a lot of different scenarios come to mind that what you're saying could be a solution to, in terms of, you could be in a bad relationship, you could be in a cultural situation, you could be in like you said earlier, a work situation, but just in being thoughtful and trying to be the solution instead of the problem, just looking at it from that perspective changes everything around. And I'm glad to hear that you were able to at least reconnect with your mother, because our parents, they are our strongest bond, and it would be very difficult I can imagine the struggle it was, back at that time when you had to make that decision. I have to do this for me so that I can have the best life I can have, even though I have to leave behind the people I love and that life, and because it's not the life for me. And again, you could apply that to many different things when people have to face the fact that they're in a bad relationship, they're in the wrong living environment, they're with the wrong people. And you have to make that decision. So I can really see how, you would have to be very strong to have that breakthrough. And so now that's what everything that you're doing with your business and working with people is all about, making that breakthrough, right?
Right. And it can happen perhaps in 3 levels of that. The first one would be if you're on the side of pain, the loneliness, and you don't really know what it is that you want to change or how you could change. I could help somebody discover that. And then we start the process to break free from that. Or maybe people are already starting to cross the river. They know that there needs to be a change in this area in their life, and they just need some help to guide them along that way. Or maybe you've made the break and you're kind of coming out on the other side. It is still muddy. You're in the swamp. And if I'd had somebody like me, or if I'd know what I know now, I would have saved a lot of, potholes I stepped into and, thorny areas I got into that just, the wrong decisions will usually produce pain for multiple people. And that's what I would be so grateful if I could help somebody else go through that part of their journey with making good decisions and not having to spend the years hurting like I had to because of decisions that produce pain. And sometimes it takes years to be healed from those hurtful things. I wanted to believe when I was on the other side of the river, I was going to be pain-free. And I experienced a lot of rejection on the first side of the river. And I thought, now that I'm on the other side, I will not be rejected again. Well, hello. Here shows rejection up. So there's things that can be done because I was pretty free when I went through that deep, intense, life-changing experience. I had to become so transformed that I was teachable and I was moldable, and I would have been such a joy to work with if the right people would have got a hold of me. because I was hungry to learn, and I listened and I learned and I responded. And I know I grew very quickly at first, but then I just very quickly found myself back into a stagnation type of a situation where it took years to work my way out of the stagnation. But this time I did it without escaping the situation. I worked it out in the situation.
Wow. If people, one of the things you say, and again, this can be applied to life in general, anywhere from personal relationships to parent-child relationships to business relationships to job relationships, the process of learning how to cope and how to respond. And like you said, if you could shave years off of the journey just by having somebody who can say, hey, let's take a look at this, and instead of making this decision that's going to add pain, let's look at a different decision so you don't have to go through all of that pain. So how do you work with people? Do you work with them in person, over Zoom, Skype? How do you work with people?
Zoom. So we can be anywhere in the world, literally anywhere in the world, and we can talk. And we have emails, so we can communicate, information and some worksheets and things that I would share. But hopefully, by the time we're done, these people that are listening to me, if they would choose to connect with me, would find that they now have a love for learning, and that they will always keep learning, because, in my journey, no one was the end all be all. It was always a growth. It was like, this person helped me in this area, and then this person came into my life and they influenced me in this area. And it was like a building block, like just continuing to build with various people's support. And I'm so grateful for those people.
Well, I think you're really right that if we were to stop and just think about all the people who have affected our lives in some way, both good and bad, sometimes it may have been just a comment. It could have been a smile. It could have been something that happened, and those people made a difference to us. Sometimes I will think about, people who, maybe I only knew them for 15 minutes, but they offered me some advice that I took that ended up helping me. Or there's other people that were mean to you, and yet even that sometimes makes you, move into a different situation that can end up being positive. So if somebody wants to reach out to you, Marian, what's the easiest and best way to do that?
They can connect directly to me by going to my website, and that is www.everythingyouTry.com. EverythingyouTry.com. My name also works, MarianMcSpadden.com. And there is a video that they can actually hear me talk. It's a little more for speaking, perhaps more than the coaching side, but you still get to hear a little bit of who I am. Then there's a link there they can click on that says connect with me. That will take them to a scheduler, and they can schedule a free consultation with me and see how we could fit together, how we could work together to change something in their life and bring a reformation. The other way is if they scroll down a little bit farther, they'll see another link where they can get my free chapter. And so they can connect with me in that way too.
Great. I did all those things.
Awesome. Thank you.
And learned about it. And like I said, obviously we could have more conversations about many different topics, but I think it's really important for people, like you said, you had you made a major shift in your life. And, you were already, in your 30s when you made this big major decision, and then you had to move forward. And like you said, it wasn't like you thought it would be. You thought, oh, when I'm free, I'm free. But then you realize that real life gets in the way. And I think we all have that happen to us, where we think, well, if we get ourselves out of this, then everything's going to be wonderful. But then we forget that real life has its ups and downs, but we keep moving forward, and that we all need support systems. So it sounds like you have some answers for people, and I highly recommend that everybody that you do contact Marian and take her up on that offer, have a free conversation to find out, well, maybe she can help you or guide you or direct you in a certain direction to help you get unstuck, no matter what your situation is. And I think that's the big takeaway for me, Marian, is that your background doesn't necessarily have to apply to personal or business, but it's kind of a whole life type of a situation that you could help somebody with. And it doesn't matter if it's a personal problem or a business problem, that if they talk to you, you can provide them with some insight that could help them, get unstuck or listen to that inner guidance system. That's what I got out of listening to you today. So, that you need to listen to that inner guidance system, and that can be the beginning of something really powerful to change your life. So before I let you go, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
Well, you mentioned sometimes you just meet people for 15 minutes and they still impact your life. I immediately remembered early in my breaking out, I actually happened to be in the Colorado mountains for a short time after that. And I decided I was going to go climb a mountain. I wanted to go climb a mountain. I wanted to go up high. I wanted to go up. Everything about me was thinking forward and up. So I'm a novice. I buy a new pair of shoes that are a little bit too stiff and don't fit my feet perfectly well. And I'm not well prepared with water. I'm not knowing what part of the day I'm starting. And it was only like 1,500 feet climb, but that's still a pretty good uphill climb. And so I start out. I hear there's a path. I hear there's a trail. I start out and I don't go far. I see a sign like, watch out for bear. So my fear level goes way up, but I don't quit. I keep going. I get a blister really quickly into the journey because my shoes are not broken, and they're a good stout hiking shoe, but they're just stout, and they hurt so badly by the time I came back. So I run out of water. I only had a small amount of water with me, and it got hot, and it was a time of the day that it really got hot. So I'm suffering, but I'm going up this path, and this very accomplished hiker comes along, and she was a female. And for some reason, she could have gone so much faster than me. She walked alongside with me for a little bit. And she showed me that you can conserve a lot of energy by finding the path of least resistance. Don't try it. There were stairs, stone steps in some of this path. And I took them head on, like whatever was in front of me, I stepped up on the highest place to get on top of that. And she showed me if you find a side somewhere where you have smaller, even though you may take 3 or 4 steps to get to that next level, it doesn't take near as much energy. And you have no idea how often that advice, because I was kind of like, head on, we'll just grab this thing and here we go. Well, sometimes that's not the best way to do life. And that little help that she gave me helped me so much on that hike, but it also was something that stayed with me. And she probably just walked with me 10 minutes or less.
Wow. So that is really good advice on so many levels. Everything from when you hike, make sure you're better prepared, but in life in general, look for the path of least resistance. That's really good advice to end on. So everyone, we've been speaking with Marian McSpadden. Go check out her website, everythingyouTry.com, or you can just go to marianmcspadden.com. And of course, I'll have all these links in the show notes so that you can find everything. So everyone, thank you so much. And Marian, thank you. And everyone, go make it a beautiful day.
You've been listening to Daily Success. Tune in again and subscribe. Never miss a moment of daily success.